Hello guys, so in this video we are going to be talking about object-oriented programming in C Sharp. So you will learn the power of inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation and abstraction. So we can see the class diagram for the whole classes that we are going to be building. So let's jump into coding and see what we have. Okay, so now we want to start looking into how we can develop everything that we saw in the class diagram. But before we talked about that, so I'll quickly go into the definition of what object-oriented programming is. So it's a collection of collaborating objects. Each object, in this case, is autonomous concepts that interact with another concept. So the way you build objects is actually by creating a blueprint and then using that blueprint to instantiate them. So we are going to talk about all this when we are looking into our code. And as we know, a blueprint is a class that has a constructor. So let's take a look at the class we have here, which is the actor. So here we can see we have an actor class. So this class represents an abstract class. So in this case, it's going to be used by the concrete classes. And we can see we have two concrete class that we actually inherit this actor class. So here we can see we have a movie actor and we can see a music actor. So before we talked about that, let's talk about this class. So now that we have a public, so which is an abstract class, and it's an actor right here. So it has these two private field. So an actor will definitely have the first name. So we have a first name for that. And also we can see that an actor is going to have the last name also. And we have a last name right here. And in C Sharp, we have what we call the uh, property, which is going to be written in capital letter for the first letter right here. So the good practice is to make sure your property name start with capital letter. And here we are going to notice that we are starting the name with an underscore, and the first following letter is the small letter right here. So the good practice is to make sure that you start your private name with an underscore. So what we are doing here basically is that we declare these guys as private, which means they are not going to be exposed outside this class. And how do we expose the feed name then? So the way we expose the feed name is by using what we call the property to expose our feed names. So right here, we can see an example of how we expose these feeds that we have right here. So in this case, we use the property to expose the feeds. So here we have a property which is a public access modifier, and right here we use the get, and we are able to return the first name and the last name that we set as private right here. So here we will be able to target the full name, and it's going to return the first name and the last name of this actor. So let's take a look at the actor constructor. So, and uh, a blueprint is a class that actually has a constructor. So we can see right here that we have a constructor. So it has method, fields, and properties. So we already saw that we have this property, and we also have some method right here. So we can see some of the method that we have. So now, one thing that I want to mention also is that constructor actually just allows you to specify anything that an object needs to be created. So in this case, we can see that we specify how we want to create the first name. So right here, we have our first name feed set right here, defined right here, and we set it up right here. So we pass in the first name as a string and the last name as a string, and we use that to set the first name and the last name that we have here. So one thing that we also like to mention is that you can do away without this keyword, so your program is still going to work. So I'm basically going to remove that just to show you guys that you can actually do that. And right here we have a method which is an abstract method. And the reason for that is because we want to allow the creation of this abstract method in the concrete class, which is going to be the one that is implementing that method. So we create an abstract method that the children classes can override. And the children classes are going to be the concrete classes that that is going to inherit this class. So abstract method, we only have signature without implementation. So as we can see here, we have the signature, but we don't have the implementation of this method. An abstract method is in an abstract class means the method can be overridden. So the reason why we have this abstract method in the abstract class is because we want to allow overriding of this method by the children classes. So for example, the implementation of an abstract class is left for the abstract method in the concrete class to implement it. So we are going to see how this two concrete classes, which is attached into the actor right here, is going to implement this method. We are going to talk about that. And in conclusion, we use the reverse keyword for abstract right here, which means it has no definition of itself and we must override it to use the method. So this is what this reserve keyword abstract means. So also we have the same thing right here. So we have what we call an abstract method also, which is named dance, and here we have it as an act. So this is what we have for this class, and we are going to begin by looking into how we can make use of this class, which is an abstract class, to actually create the concrete classes. So we are going to look into that. All right, so now we are going to be talking about one of the child of the actor class. So we already discussed about the actor. So the actor has children, right? So we can see one of them is the movie actor, and the second one right here is the music actor. So you can have as many as you want, but we just have just these two just for the demonstration of this course. So now we have a movie actor. So let's discuss about this movie actor. So a movie actor is a class. So we can see that right here. It inherits from the actor. So we can see that right here. So we already created an actor class and we put in the informations, the details that we want for the actor. So actor has the first name, the last name. It exposed the first name and the last name using the full name. So we can see that right here. We have the constructor. So we set the full name and the first name and the last name. Then we have an abstract method. So we can see that right here. And we have the dance method, which is coming from the high dancer interface. So we are going to discuss about that also. So we can quickly take a look at that method right here. So I'll go back to the movie actor. So in the movie actor, what we are doing now is that we have a constructor. So we discussed about the constructor already, and we can see that this constructor has the first name and the last name also. But what we are doing here is that we inherit from the base constructor. So we're using the base keyword right here. So we can see that right here. And this is coming from the actor, right? Because we already have this constructor set up in the actor. And after that, what we are doing now is that we jump into the method, which is the act method, which is coming from the actor, right? So quickly, I'm going to go back to the class diagram. So let's take a look at that. So this is the class diagram that we have. So I'm going to be talking about these three diagrams. So the first one, the second one, the third one right here. So the first one is the abstract, which is the actor. And we can see we have the negative first name, which means that this one is private, and the negative last name, which means it's also private feed. And we have the plus with the first letter in capital, which means that this is a public property. And they all have string, which is the type they all have. And we have a method. We call the first one the act method, which means that actor should be able to act, but the way they act might be different. So this is why each of these guys want to implement the actor in their own different ways. So we can see movie actor acts in his own way, and the music actor acts in his own way. But we give the possibility of dancing to the two of them, and this is the reason why we have an interface right here, which is being inherits from the which is being inherited by the actor right here. So let's take a look at it. So now we have the public override void hacked. So this hacked is coming from the hacked method, as I already mentioned in the diagram. So here we can see the way this guy is actually acting. So we use the console.write line to just implement that. So it says, hi, my name is whatever the name is. I'm a movie actor. And here we are given the name right here. So, and we use this full name, as I mentioned already, to expose the first name and the last name, which is coming from the actor method, the actor class. And now we go to the dance method. This dance method is coming from the interface, which is the iDancer interface. So if we take a look at the iDancer, we have this method right here. So we have this method, but this method is actually not implemented, right? So we can see an interface. It's like an abstract class also, because all the methods which are declared inside interface are abstract methods. It cannot have method body and cannot be instantiated. So we can see that it is used to achieve what we call multiple inheritance in C Sharp, which cannot be achieved by class. It is used to achieve fully abstraction because it cannot have method body. Its implementation must be provided by class or struct. So we can see this is why we implemented that in the movie actor right here. So this class provides the implementation of that method, which is coming from the interface. So we can see that right here. So let's take a look at this. So if I comment this one out now, this line of code, we must see a red line, which means that there's an error. So it means that this class must actually implement the method, which is coming from the uh, iDancer interface. So let's say, for example, you have a new developer in your team and he eventually try to change the name of this method. You can see that we are quickly going to get a warning that you can't do that because we have an interface which is already having this method name, and we must actually implement that method right here. So this is one of the good power of an interface. So I will really quickly uncomment that, and we can see that the error is gone now, so which is good for us, right? So this is what we can see here. So we can see that interface also allow us to have the unification of unrelated group of classes. We are going to be talking about that when we try to discuss about the developer class also, because the developer class is different from the actor class. So developer is also an abstract class, which is different, which is not related to an actor. So an actor has two children, so movie actor and a music actor. So movie actor acts in a different way, and music actor acts in a different way. So this is the reason why we have the act method for each of them in a different way. So we can see we have the same method, but we have different implementation. We are kind of achieving what we call polymorphism right here. So the same method, different implementation. So we can see that. So this is this for the movie and the music actor that belongs to the actor class. Okay, so we've been discussing a lot. I think before we continue, it's going to make sense for us to actually see the output results of what we are trying to build here. So what I'm going to do is to quickly run this program. Let's see what we have. So right here, we can see that we have this result coming up. So I'm not going to discuss about that yet, so I can quickly close that and we can continue with the development. So here, we have a class which is called the developer class. So the developer class is basically an abstract class, as we saw before. The actor class was also an abstract class which we discussed about. So developer class is just the same representation of what we've seen before, but this is just a different class which has its names to be a developer. So, and we can see that we have the reserved keyword also as an abstract, which means that for this class, we'll be able to actually override some of its member or methods. So we are going to see that. So here we can see the first thing that we have is that we have the private string, and it's having a first name, the last name, and we can see we have what we call the def language. So we are going to be talking about those. These are just feed basically, so nothing much. And right here we can see we have what we call the public string full name. So in this case, we are using the public
access modifier.
So what this is allowing us to do is that we want to be able to have the possibility of exposing the private feed. So we've discussed about that early. So here we can see what we are returning is just the first name and the last name. So, and we have also what we call the def language. So we want to be able to expose the def language we set as private feed here, and we use the get for that, and we return the def language right here. So what I'm doing here is that I use the constructor for the developer. So here we can see we have the developer name, so the constructor should be the same thing, the same name with the class name. So but in this case we don't have a return type, as we can see right here. And here we can see we have what we call the string first name and the string last name and the string def language. So we set those fields that we have in the field right here. So we can see them right here. We set them up in the constructor. And here we have what we call the public void code. So right here we can see we have what we call the choosing def language. And what we are doing with the choosing def language, if we go to the diagram. So let's take a look at the diagram. So here in the diagram, we can see we have the developer class, which is an abstract, first name, last name, def language, and full name. So these are the fields and property. Then the first method that we have here is the code. So, and we also have the method which we call the choosing def language. It has the access modifier of protected, which means that it's going to be accessible to the class that has this method and the class that inherits this method. So right here we can see we have what we call the void, so which means the return, it has no return type, it's just a void. And right here we can see we have the app developer and we have the web developer. So the app developer has the choosing dev language, so it actually implements that. So right here we can see we have the choosing dev language, which is protected, and here we have the web developer, and the web developer, we give some possibility for the web developer to do some certain things that the app developer could not do. So right here we can see that being an app developer doesn't give him the possibility of dancing. So he could not dance. But for web developer can dance and he could also teach. So we can see that right here. So this is the things that we are giving to the web developer, and we are going to see how we actually build this up in code. So we can see when I discussed about an interface earlier, I said it is used, it allows us to actually unify uh, groups of unrelated classes. So we can see, for example, here, so actor is not related to a developer. So we can see how the interface is used to unify these two. And right here, we also have what we call the high teacher interface. It has a teach method, and we can see that the actor cannot teach, right? So we didn't give this possibility, but the developer can teach. So we can see that, and not all the developer could teach. We have a specific developer that can teach. And in this case, we see that the web developer only can teach, so the app developer cannot teach. So we are going to see how all this is implemented in our code. So I'm going to jump back into my code. So right here, we basically see some of those things that we discussed from the diagram. So here we can see the private feeds, and here we can see the property, which is the full name. We return the private feed. And right here, we have the constructor. So we can see that right here, and we set those feeds right here. And here we have the protected abstract void choosing def language. So this is just the abstract class for the developer. And the next thing we are going to be looking into is to see how the children classes, which is going to be the web developer and the app developer, inherits from this developer class. So now I'm in the app developers class, even though we have two classes for the developers class that we have here. So what I mean is that we have two children for the developer class. And what I mean by that is that we have two classes that inherit from the developer class. So in this case, I'm going to refer to the first child as the app developer. So let's take a look at that. So in the app developer, we basically have what we call the public class, app developer, so which is a concrete class. And it has the developer, so which means that it inherits from the developer. So we can see how we specify the inheritance right here. It inherits from the developer, and the same thing that we discussed already. So an app developer has a constructor. So since it inherits from the developer, so it also inherits the base constructor from the developer. So we can see that right here, the base right here. And here we have the protected override void using dev language. So what we are doing here is basically something that we need to talk about. So what I'm going to do is to quickly go back to the developer class, because if you take notes now, we are not overriding the code method directly in the app developer or in the web developer. So what we are doing is that we set that up right here to be public. And the reason for that is that developer needs to be able to write code, right? So we want our developer to have the possibility of choosing their own dev language to write code. So this means the code will have one step of development process, and this is why I changed this method from abstract to just have a void, because I would like to call the code outside of the children class. So for instance, I want to call this code in a program.cs file using the object of a class. And this is basically why I choose to have it to be in public void code right here. And right here, we can see that we have the protected abstract, which we actually call in the code right here. So uh, I created a method which is called is using dev language. And the method has the protected access modifier because I want it to be available within this class and every other classes that we inherit from this only. So this is what I want to do. I want this particular method to be available to this class and every other classes that we inherit from this. So in this case, I was able to implement this abstract using dev language in the app developer and basically call it right here in the code. And I will be able to call this code in the program.cs directly. So this is what we are trying to do here. So if I go back to the app developer, so right here, we can see that we override the choosing dev language, which is the one that we saw initially in the developer class. So right here, so it has no implementation. Then I implement that right here, and I use the console.write line. I just say, hi, my name is whatever the name is. I use whatever the language. So because we are going to get that language from the dev language that we pass right here. So I use, maybe for example, I use C# as my dev language. And maybe, for example, hi, my name is John, for example. I use C# as my dev language. So we are going to see something like that written out. And because we are calling this method in the code, so whenever we call the developer, so an object, for example, let's say we have a developer who is a John, and we use that John to call the code method that we have here. So basically, we'll be able to print out the information about that particular developer. So this is what we have for the app developer. And if we quickly jump into the web developer also, so you notice from the diagram that the web developer can develop, can dance, and can teach. And this is the reason why we have the high dancer, I teacher for the web developer. And what this means is that we inherit from the developer. This class implements the high dancer, and this class implements the high teacher. So in C Sharp, we don't have the possibility of this multiple inheritance using classes. So instead, we use interface for that. So here we can see we have the first one, which is the abstract class, is a developer, and the second one is an interface, and the third one is an interface. So here we have the constructor for the web developer. It uses the base constructor, so it inherits from the developer constructor that we have in the developer. So we use the base as a key for that. So we can see that right here. And here we can see that we have what we call the public void dance. So the idea about this is that we have the dance method, which is coming from the high dancer. So if I comment this out now, so basically we noticed that already in the previous one that we saw. So we can see we have this line telling us that we need to implement this particular method, which is coming from the high dancer. So here I'm going to remove that. So here we also have the method which is coming from the high teacher interface. So if we go to the high teacher interface, basically we've not seen that. So we have just this one method. So we also discussed about an interface already. And if I go back to the web developer, so we can see that our web developer can dance and our web developer can teach. So we can see that right here. So I also teach courses, and we can see that we have the full name and the language, the dev language for the course that I teach also. And here we can see that we have the protected override voice using dev language. So it's the same thing that we have in the app developer. So we have the using dev language, which we actually override. So here we can see that because it's coming from the developer class. So here we can see that from the developer class. And I already explained the reason why we choose to have this as protected and have this to be set as public, and we call the protected method right inside the code method block. So we can see that right here. So if I go back to the web developer, so the web developer has this information, and we are able to basically return the informations back to the caller based on the way we call these developers. So if we go back to the program.cs. So in the program.cs, we are going to see a lot of information on how we call these guys. So here, basically, we can see that we have a list of actors. So since the actors is the abstract class, so we use that as the generic type. So we can see that right here. And we call this actors, so which is returning the new actors. So here we can see we have both the movie actor and the music actor. We can actually return because they all inherit from the actor class. And we actually look through these actors, and we are able to actually get what this actor can do. So we can see that these two actors can act and they can dance. So we give those possibility in our code, and we are able to get those methods to see what these actors could do. And here we can see that we have the developers also. So we have a list of developer, which is the generic type that we passed in, an abstract class that we have, which is a developer. And here we can see that we are able to have the new web developer. So we set the first name, the last name, and the language that this guy can actually teach, or maybe the language that I develop with. And here we can see we have Ben Robots, and it has the Java as its own language. We iterate over that, and we are able to get the developer code right here. And the same thing for the high dancer, so the interface. So here we can see that we have the generic type as the high dancer. And here we can see that since it's possible for the web developer to dance, we are able to have this unrelated group of classes You can see that right here. We are able to use the interface to get the informations from there. So here we can see we don't have the app developer because we do not give the possibility of dancing to the app developer, but we only have it for the web developer and we have it for the movie actor. So we iterate over that and we can get how these guys are dancing. And let's take a look at the high teacher interface. So we will take note that the teacher, the person that can teach, is only the web developer. So here we just have the two new guys. So we say this one is the John Liz. It teaches HTML, and this guy is Dread Gay. It teaches PHP. We iterate over that, and we get the teach method to be able to return how these guys are teaching. So what I'm going to do now is that I will just run this quickly and show you how we get those values out. So here we can see that, hi, my name is John Kenneth. I'm a movie actor. So basically, if I go up, so we can see that right here. Hi, my name is John Kenneth. I'm a movie actor, and yeah, so let's do it this way. So here we can see uh, I can also dance to music from music actors. So we can see that, hi, my name is Tom Tom. I'm a movie actor. So this guy is also a movie actor. I can also dance to music from music actors. So you can also dance. So that is Tom Tom, this new guy right here. Then we have the other one, which is Tread Last, and my name is this. I'm a music actor, so you can see that this guy is a music actor. So his implementation is different from the movie actor, the way he hacked, and this is one of the reasons why we need to override the hacked method for each of these guys individually. And here we can see that I can dance to music. So this is what this guy says now. It says he can also dance to music. And when we go to the developer, so we can see, hi, my name is Dread. So I use C# as my dev language. We can see that right here. And when we come to the next line, which is the line at 24, we see, hi, my name is Ben Robot. So we can see that right here. I use Java, so we can see Java as my dev language. We go to the next one, which is basically the uh, high dancer. So in the high dancer, we can see we also have what we call, my name is Habot Tread. I can dance. So this is just what we want to get. I can also dance to music from music actors. So here we can see that we also have for John Lace, but Tread we talked about that. So we have John Lace. I also teach HTML courses. So we can see that from here. And we also have for Dread Gay, I also teach PHP. So we can see that here. So these are the teachers. So they can teach. We can see how we try to separate our concerns and how we use the power of the abstraction, the power of the inheritance, the polymorphism, and encapsulation to achieve this result. So this is just the basic of OOP, guys. I hope this will help somebody. Thanks for watching.